Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat 11 video. Now in today's history breakdown and analysis, we will be talking about the former Khan and a member of the Oztec people, Kotal Khan. Now in order to talk about Kotal Khan as a character, we need to talk about what makes him so special to the universe, as well as where exactly did he debut in the series, as he still somewhat is fairly new to it. Now without any further ado, let's get right on to the video. Now as I'd mentioned, Kotal Khan is still fairly new to the series. Being conceived and created within the new timeline, he hasn't exactly been around as long as some of the other characters, but despite this has gained a significant amount of popularity behind him, and this is due to his rather unique design, as there is a lot of Aztec influence in it. Now for us to talk about Kotal, we do need to go to Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Now during the later half of Armageddon, a fierce battle ensued, as you see the victor of this massive fight would be able to absorb the power of the fire elemental Blaze, and by doing so the individual that won would in fact transcend godhood, in turn becoming an extremely powerful individual that could rival both not only the normal gods but even the elder gods. Now unfortunately for the original timeline, the victor wasn't anyone from the forces of light, but it was in fact the main antagonist of the series, that being the ruthless Shao Kahn, who crippled many individuals during the battle and by the end of it slayed Raiden. But this wasn't before he could send a message to his past self, altering and changing many of the events of the original timeline in the hopes of preventing Armageddon. In turn, however, he did create a completely different tangent to the original timeline, with many alterations that differ from the original continuity. Now Kotal is in fact one of these anomalies, reigning from the newly introduced realm known as Oztec. Now there's a reason why we don't hear much about this realm, but I'll be getting into it in a bit. Now Kotal is the son of an individual known as Kotal Ketz, and Ketz was the leader of the Oztecs, being known for his extremely talented skill in combat as well as the strong leadership he had. So Kotal had a lot of expectations put on him whilst growing up. However, despite his father's incredible power, almost all of the Oztec people were slaughtered when Shao Kahn invaded their realm. Now in order to spare his people, Ketz made a deal with Shao Kahn, saying that he would allow Kahn to merge their realms together if in turn he spared his people. Now because Shao Kahn understandably had a thirst for conquest, that being more so the realms than the people itself, he would accept this deal, and in turn as a somewhat gesture of goodwill between the two sides, Shao Kahn would allow Ketz and Kotal to keep a portal stone, an incredibly powerful tool that would teleport anyone to anywhere they wish. Now despite this somewhat peaceful deal, Kotal was somewhat disgusted at what his father had done, as he did somewhat feel like his father turned his back on their people. Now up to a certain extent, Kotal Ketz somewhat agreed with this, and believed that it was time for Kotal to take over the role of leader, but in order to do this he needed to prove himself, and that was to survive the dangers in front of him in Earthrealm. Now as Kotal was on his journey to prove himself, he would have to travel through the coldest of mountains, the hottest of deserts, and inevitably he ended up at the Amazon jungle. Now the jungle he stumbled upon just so happened to have had Mayan people lying within it, and at first they were absolutely terrified of Kotal, as well he didn't really look human. However, when the Mayans were attacked, he would be the one that defended them, and because of this the Mayans started to worship Kotal. Now Kotal was somewhat seen as an inspiration to these people, and they did pick up many of his unique Oztec traditions, such as the consumption of their enemies' hearts, something that would eventually be integrated into their culture. Now after Kotal felt like his time was done, he finally returned back to his father to reveal to him what he had done, but instead of receiving praise from Ketz, Kotal was in fact scolded by him, as Ketz said to him that the humans weren't as strong as he so believed, and that he had inadvertently brought them to their death. Now Kotal thought that his father was just being hard on him, but when Kotal returned back to the Mayan village, he realized that the Mayans had died. You see, by consuming the blood of others, they had inadvertently developed a disease that slowly but surely infected and killed all of them. So Kotal was extremely upset when he returned back home, as he had somewhat failed his quest and decided to enroll in Shao Kahn's army. Now during this time here, he met many different individuals. He served with Reiko for a small amount of time, he was successful in rescuing Ferrator, and he became familiar with the likes of Reptile, even sparing his life when Shao Kahn ordered for his assassination. So because of this, he became a big face within Shao Kahn's army, even acquiring the title of general. Now over the course of time, he forged a relationship with Kitana's bodyguard Jade, and the two were somewhat match made in heaven, despite their relationship being kept from public eyes. Now Shao Kahn became aware of the relationships he was building up within his army, and as a way of possibly stopping Kotal from creating a rebellion within Shao Kahn's army, Shao Kahn would have Kotal be thrown into Shang Tsung's flesh pits, wanting the sorcerer to experiment on him and create an individual that would be obedient to him. However, this torture would not last very long. As you see, during the events of MK9, Shang Tsung is killed by Shao Kahn when his soul is infused with Sindel's life force. So with Shang Tsung being killed in the story mode, Kotal would be freed from his shackles. But by the end of MK9, he walked away with the painful knowledge of knowing that Jade was killed in battle, and this cut Kotal deep, and he did swear a form of abstinence from this point onwards, as Jade was the only woman for him. Now really, this brings me on to the events in the Mortal Kombat X comic book run, as at the end of MK9, Shao Kahn is finally defeated by Raiden, and the Emperor is taken out of the equation. Now because of this, Kotal saw this as the perfect opportunity to step up and become the new Khan of Outworld, but acquiring the title of Khan would be no easy task. As you see, Shao Kahn's daughter, the Tarkatan Edenian hybrid Mileena, would take over his throne. Now because of Mileena's poor leadership skills, she began to slowly drive the realm into the ground. Kotal would create a small army and battle against Mileena for the title of Khan, with Kotal in fact being successful in pushing her out of Outworld. Now it wasn't all peace. Despite pushing Mileena out, they suffered frequent attacks on a daily basis, as many powerful individuals had also sided with Mileena, like the ruthless Reiko, the demigod Rain, and the Shogun Prince Goro, an individual that Kotal had always disliked. Now in order to gain more power, Kotal would forge new alliances, and this would mean that he would reach out to Earthrealm and create a new alliance between the two sides, despite their somewhat bitter history. Now really, Kotal couldn't have picked a better time, as you see Earthrealm was currently locking horns with the Netherrealm as the fallen elder god Shinnok had returned. So because of this, an alliance was made, and Kotal and his Outworld forces did assist in defeating some of Shinnok's army. Now once this was all over, it seemed like Earthrealm and Outworld were now on good terms. However, as the years passed by, one day Kotal and his allies would be captured by the special forces. As you see, they had travelled to Outworld in order to gain some assistance from the special forces, as well as inform them that the Red Dragon had sided with Mileena. However, despite their pleas, Sonya Blade was not at all interested to hear what they had to say, wanting them to go back home to Outworld and to keep the civil war out of Earthrealm's affairs. Now a fight does nearly break out, as the tension between the two sides does rise to an all-time high, but fortunately Earthrealm's protector Raiden does appear, wanting their conflict to stop. Now Kotal pleads to Raiden for their assistance, as the war in Outworld is only getting worse and more people are dying because of it. Now despite Raiden being rather sympathetic to what's going on in Outworld, he does not wish to get involved. Now Kotal is extremely disappointed with this reply, especially after their alliance against the Netherrealm, saying that if he does fail, then Mileena will be coming for them next. And like that, Kotal and his forces retreat back to Outworld. Now after a loud and powerful speech to his fellow Outworlders, Kotal catches word that Goro has apparently appeared in the Golden Desert. Now believing that by following Goro's tracks it would lead to Mileena, Kotal would send his father to track down Goro, giving him Shao Kahn's Wrath Hammer so that he could use it if it came to a worst case scenario. However, despite having this hammer, Kotal would learn of his father's demise at Goro's hand. Now with no other choice, Kotal Kahn was forced to rely on a Kamidogu dagger and tap into the blood magic within this. You see, unlike the original timeline, where the Kamidogus were simply amulets of each different realm, in the rebooted universe, the Kamidogus are in fact daggers, and each dagger has ties to blood magic, an ancient form of Outworld magic that significantly amplifies the wielder of the blade, or at least anyone who is cut by it. Now Kotal would use this Kamidogu dagger in order to even the odds. So Kotal and a handful of his chosen warriors would go to his father's last known location, and it's here where he's able to find Mileena's hideout. Now the conflict would immediately begin, as Kotal saw Rain in his sights, and used his ability to control solar rays to immediately burn Rain where he stood. And it's here where Kotal charged into battle, killing many of Mileena's forces and going toe to toe against his father's killer Goro. Now Goro for the most part dominated the fight, but the second Kotal was able to tap into that blood magic, Kotal Kotal's not only able to even out the odds, but completely dominate the Shokan Prince, severing all of his arms. Now instead of killing him, Kotal decides to spare his life, wanting him to live in the shame that he's cast upon himself. Now it's here where Kotal's sights are finally turned on Melina's hideout, but by the time Kotal and his forces storm the fortress, he is informed by Reptile that apparently Melina and Reiko have escaped. So after learning about this, Kotal decides to return back home, as using the Kamidogu dagger has significantly weakened him. But before he can get back to Outworld's capital, he would be attacked by Sonya Blade. You see, Sonya and Johnny's daughter had in fact been kidnapped at this point in time, and the incriminating evidence they had is a picture left on Cassie's phone of one of Kotal Khan's allies, Erron Black. So Sonya would attack him on sight. However, Johnny is able to intervene and cool down the situation, wanting them to talk about what exactly has happened. Now Kotal's rather surprised about the information he's received about Erron Black here, as he always saw Erron Black as a very reliable individual, so this was a bit of a shock to him. Now wanting answers himself, Kotal would return back to Zunkara in his weakened state, whilst his allies took the special forces to Erron Black's last known location, and it's here where they find the brutally beaten gunslinger. Now upon being brought to his knees in front of Kotal, it's here where we learn that Erron Black had made a deal with the Black Dragons to kidnap the two girls, but unfortunately their plans went belly up, as they were attacked by the Red Dragons, and he was left incapacitated by Mavada. Now although Kotal Khan did forgive Erron Black for his crimes, he could not allow this to pass, and would have him imprisoned within his dungeon. Now Kotal does apologize to the special forces, but before they could proceed with tracking down the girls, Outworld would be attacked by a Shokan army. You see, Goro had returned back home and had told his father about what had happened. Gorbak saw this as the highest form of disrespect, and as such had assembled his entire Shokan army to destroy Kotal Khan and everything that he cared for. Now as you would expect, a huge battle would erupt, with many casualties on both sides. It even forced Kotal Khan's hand to recruit the Black Dragons into his army to even out the odds. And because of this, Kotal was able to gain the upper hand in this battle, where he was successful in killing King Gorbak. Now although he did slay their emperor, Kotal Khan said to the Shokan army that this was simply all a plot put together by the likes of Melina and Reiko. He didn't at all want this battle, but he believed that by joining forces together, they would in fact be able to stop Melina and what she was doing. So the Shokan would align themselves with Kotal Khan's forces, and together along with the special forces, they would travel to Shang Tsung's island to stop Reiko and his sinister plan. You see, behind the scene, Reiko had in fact betrayed Melina, as after the fall of Shao Kahn, he would be approached by the Chaos Roamer known as Havoc, and Havoc offered him the opportunity to obtain godhood through the use of blood magic. Now this would obviously have to be done through collecting the Kamidogu daggers, something which he was very successful in doing, as during the Shokan War, Scarlet had secretly been sent out to steal Kotal. Now eventually Kotal, along with the special forces and Shokan, do arrive at Shang Tsung's island, and they do confront Reiko. He believes that by eliminating him from the equation, then it's one more chess piece off the board. However, Reiko proves to be far more formidable than Kotal had expected. As you see, he is also tainted by the blood code, but to a degree that it is supernatural, as he's able to survive a majority of hits that would kill any other normal combatant. The battle turns into complete anarchy, where Melina also arrives. Now it's here where an all-out war does break out, but one thing we quickly do learn is that Melina hates Reiko far more than she hates Kotal, so together they nearly destroy the former Outworld general. But fortunately for him, as a last-ditch effort, Havoc calls in a blood code corrupted Raiden in order to stop the battle. After this, Kotal was strapped to a table to be part of Reiko's ritual to ascend to godhood, and by using the blood code, he is able to transcend to such heights. However, it's very quick here that we learn this has all in fact been a ploy for Havoc. He hadn't tricked Reiko into becoming a blood god, but in fact a vessel for Shinnok's amulet. So he quickly kills the general and takes the amulet for himself. Now with the blood code at his fingertips, he enslaves Kotal Khan under his will. With a blood god army at his fingertips, the realms were his for the taking. However, before he's able to do anything, they would be attacked by an extremely young man known as Takeda Takahashi. Now Takeda is able to hold his own for a significant amount of time. However, the numbers prove to be far too much for him, and he is overpowered. But before he can be killed, Kotal Khan's forces arrive, and Vora battles against Kotal in the hopes of breaking the blood code's influence over him. However, it seems like Kotal is completely under Havoc's control. Now before he's able to kill any of his allies, Havoc would be decapitated by a recently revived Hanzo Hasashi, and by him removing the head of the Chaos Cleric, he's able to free everyone under the influence of the Blood Code, so Kotal's able to regain his senses. Now after Reiko's defeat, it seems like Kotal and the Special Forces are on rather good terms, saying that they do wish to help each other out, with Sonya actually agreeing to this, so there is a bit of an alliance between the two sides. Raiden in fact offers Kotal the opportunity to protect Shinnok's amulet, but Kotal does not want it, knowing the responsibility that comes with possessing such a powerful weapon, and with it actually being an Outworld, it may mean it might fall into the wrong hands. Now before Kotal could confront Mileena, she does flee from the scene, so Kotal and his forces would return back to Outworld and would continue to try and make Outworld a better place. Now at this point, a few years would have passed by between the events of the comic books as well as the actual game. Now Kotal really is first seen during chapter 2, where he's riding in a carriage alongside D'Vorah and Kano, and he is attempting to strike a deal with the Black Dragon leader. However, as they are traveling, Kotal would be attacked by Mileena's forces. So yes, she still is most certainly interested in obtaining Outworld's throne once more. Now despite the crazy amount of Tarkatans attacking them, they prove to be absolutely no match against the likes of Erron Black, D'Vorah and Ermac. But as the battle was underway and Kotal was seemingly safe in his carriage, he would be attacked by Kano, and this battle does spill out to the carriage, with Kano remarking that Mileena will pay him a fortune if he kills him. Now the two do fight, and Kotal is able to defeat the Black Dragon merchant, but before he can slay him, he would be attacked by Tanya, who at this point in time has also sided with Mileena. But again, much like Kano, she proves to be no actual threat. It's here, however, where he's challenged by yet another Edenia, that being Rain, but the demigod is defeated once again by Kotal, and is nearly killed until Mileena interrupts and saves his life. Now as far as I'm aware, this is the first the two have actually interacted with each other since the events of the comic books, and despite Mileena's best efforts, she is actually overpowered and defeated by Kotal Khan. But before she can be taken in for her crime, she is seemingly able to pull out Shinnok's amulet and defend herself by attacking everyone in her vicinity. However, the amulet proves to be far too strong for her, and she does faint from using it. Luckily for her, Rain is successful in teleporting her out of there. Now knowing that this is far from over, Kotal would take a far more aggressive approach when it came to finding out Mileena's location. Now during Kung Jin's chapter of the game, Kotal would be confronted by Cassie Cage and her team, as they had entered the realm to talk to Kotal, but had ended up in a massive fight in the Outworld marketplace. Now because of this, Kotal in fact orders for their execution, but Kung Jin prevents this by challenging Kotal to trial by combat, giving them the opportunity they need to talk to Kotal, as understandably at this point, he's rather unhappy that the amulet has fallen into Mileena's hand. Now Kotal does battle Kung Jin, and he is defeated by the Shaolin, so it does give Cassie and her team the opportunity to talk to him, despite D'Vorah not being too happy about this. Now as the story does progress, Kotal Khan learns from the Special Forces that Mileena is located in the Kwartan jungle, so he sends his trusted general D'Vorah to track her down with Cassie. Now eventually the two are successful, and Mileena is finally brought before Kotal Khan. Now knowing how dangerous Mileena is, and how long this fight has been going on for, so Kotal orders D'Vorah to kill Mileena, and thus she is another piece off the chessboard. Now of course, due to Mileena's capture, Cassie and her team were able to acquire Shinnok's amulet, as they wished to return it back to Earthrealm to keep it in their care, but Kotal Khan was against this, as he imprisons all of them, believing that the safest hands now are his own. And it's very clear that despite Earthrealm protecting this amulet, it has time and time again fallen into the wrong hands. But despite his beliefs and his claims, Kotal Khan would be betrayed by his general D'Vorah, as she had secretly been working with Quan Chi the entire time to play a hand in Shinnok's resurrection. And after this happens, and the Special Forces are able to escape, Kotal Khan loses all trust within the Earthrealmers. So he's able to track down Cassie's team to the outskirts of the Sky Temple and attacks them all. Now knowing that Shinnok has been freed from his amulet, he believes that by bringing Cassie's team's heads to Shinnok's feet, then it may allow him the opportunity to buy Outworld more time. So Kotal battles the likes of Takeda and Jackie, and Kotal's forces seem to have the numbers game, as it basically forces Cassie's team into a corner. But Kotal cannot complete his mission, as they would be attacked by the Lin Kuei led by Sub-Zero. Now it's unaware of what really happened with Kotal at the very end of MKX, however it's extremely safe to believe that all ties Kotal had with Earthrealm are now gone, as at the end of MKX, Raiden becomes a ruthless tyrant when he obtains Shinnok's amulet and is slowly corrupted by it. Mortal Kombat 11. Now Kotal makes his final appearance in this game, where it's currently set in the Outworld Coliseum Colosseum and is about to execute the Collector. However, just before he can do this, the sands of time seemingly wind back, and Shao Kahn as well as many different faces from the past suddenly do appear. You see, during the events of Mortal Kombat 11, we are introduced to a new somewhat deity to the series, that being Kronika, a titan that has the capability to bend time to her will. Now Kronika herself has grown tired of Raiden meddling with the timeline, and as such has merged two different timelines together to call upon allies that otherwise would have been gone. So for the first time in decades, Kotal comes face to face with none other than Shao Kahn, and it's here where he also shares a very brief yet sweet moment with Jade, but Shao Kahn does interfere, as he's not at all satisfied with someone like Kotal Kahn taking over his place. Now Kotal tries to offer Shao Kahn a place in Outworld, but understandably the Conqueror of Worlds would not hear any of this, and attempts to kill Kotal Kahn, dropping a pillar on the Osh-Tekk in the hopes of killing him. Now because of Shao Kahn's outburst, a massive battle does erupt, with Kotal taking on the likes of Baraka, Scarlet, and a young Erron Black, one that was sided with the Black Dragons. Now after this is over, he does share a quick kiss with Jade, but with the battle waging on, he knows that he must continue to fight, and by the skin of his teeth, Kotal's able to defeat Shao Kahn, but before anything can be done, they are all teleported away by D'Vorah, who has also been siding with Kronika. Now understandably confused of what exactly is happening, he does want answers from Raiden. Now Raiden himself is somewhat unfamiliar with Kotal at this point in time, but Kotal does inform him that they were former allies, before telling him about what happened to this incarnation of Raiden, where he was corrupted by Shinnok's amulet. Now with Raiden saying that he's nothing like his other counterpart, the two decide to create an alliance, as they do need to stop Shao Kahn and Kronika. Now Kotal can be seen a few chapters later, where he and Jade have been given the mission of infiltrating a Tarkatan camp. However, it's not quite as easy as it sounds, as they would be attacked by a Revenant Jade, and of course D'Vorah, who is nearly successful in killing Kotal until Jade herself steps in. Now the infiltration mission is a somewhat success, but it's here where Kotal Kahn's cruel nature does surface. As you see, Kotal has bared a large amount of resentment towards the Tarkatan, as they have always been against him under Mileena's leadership, so he does wish to have all of them be executed, but Jade attempts to remind him of who he is, and that Kotal has never been this cruel before. Now Kotal attempts to ignore what Jade has to say, but the two do fight, with Kotal being defeated by her. Now their plan at this point basically completely falls apart, with Kotal being humiliated and Jade being tortured by Scarlet. It's only until Kitana, Liu Kang, and Kung Lao intervene that the tide of battle slowly start to change. As you see, under Kitana's leadership, she's able to recruit Baraka and his Tarkatan horde, along with the Shogun and their army. So together, when they storm Shao Kahn's Colosseum, they are able to defeat him. But this isn't before Shao Kahn can grab Kotal and break his spine, crippling Kotal and stopping him from using his legs. Now despite his injuries, Kotal somewhat comes back to his senses, and after realizing what Kitana has actually done for Outworld, decides to pass over the title of Khan to her, wanting her leadership to unite the entire realm. It's also here where Jade and Kotal once again have a tender moment, and the pair do decide to get together officially. Now unfortunately, this is the somewhat end of Kotal's story in the Mortal Kombat universe, and it's left a bit obscure, as at the very end of the story mode, with Kronika resetting the timeline, and Kitana and Liu Kang becoming the new keepers of the Hourglass, we don't exactly know how time is going to be rewritten. So yes guys, that's actually it for the history of Kotal Kahn. I hope you have enjoyed this video and learnt more by doing so. I do apologize for the lack of videos, but this one took me a while to put together, so I hope you have most certainly enjoyed it. Now there will be far more content coming out next week, as I do have a lot of plans in the pipeline that I can't exactly talk about right now, but rest assured it's something that you most certainly want to keep an eye out for. But yeah guys, that's basically it for now. And here's a quick question for all of you. How do you guys feel about Kotal as a character? Do you think he's a good Khan or a better leader? Please do comment down below. But yeah, that's it for now. So before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of supporting this channel. And also do not forget to tick that bell, as it will notify you when I do upload a video. But yeah, that's it for now. So as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.